Have you ever wondered why tears appear at the exact moment when life feels almost perfect? You win something you worked years to achieve. Someone you love suddenly surprises you. You hear incredible news you've been waiting for. You see your child take their first steps. You finally meet someone you thought you had lost forever. And then, instead of simply smiling, you start crying. Nothing is wrong. You're not hurt, you're not grieving, you're happy. So why is your body producing the same tears it produces during sadness? The answer begins with something surprisingly important. Your brain doesn't treat emotions as completely separate boxes. Happiness, sadness, relief, excitement, love, fear, and even overwhelming gratitude can all push the brain into a state of extremely high emotional arousal. And when that happens, something strange can occur. Your body may need a way to release the pressure. Think about the moment someone tells you, "You got the job." For a few seconds, your brain may struggle to process what just happened. You were expecting uncertainty, maybe disappointment, maybe another rejection. But suddenly, reality changes. You got it. Your brain rapidly shifts from tension to relief, from anticipation to reward. Your heart rate can change, your breathing can change, your facial muscles react, your nervous system becomes highly active, and then the tears come. But here's the fascinating part. Those tears don't necessarily mean your brain is confused. They may be part of how your body regulates an overwhelming emotional experience. Your nervous system is constantly trying to keep your body within a manageable range. When something extremely emotional happens, that balance can temporarily shift. Crying can become one part of the body's response as the intensity begins to settle. This is why people sometimes cry after something they've been waiting for finally happens. They may say, "I don't even know why I'm crying," but there is often a very good reason. They've been carrying emotional tension for much longer than they realized. Imagine someone preparing for an important exam. For months they've been studying. Every day contains pressure. What if I fail? What if all this effort means nothing? What if I disappoint everyone? Then the results arrive. They passed. Suddenly, the threat disappears. The mind doesn't need to fight anymore, and the emotions that were held back can finally come forward. The tears aren't necessarily sadness. They can be relief, and relief can be incredibly powerful. But there is another mystery. Why do humans cry emotionally in the first place? After all, many animals produce tears. Tears are essential for keeping the eyes healthy. They protect the surface of the eye, prevent dryness, and help remove irritants. But humans also produce something different, emotional tears, and scientists have spent years trying to understand exactly why. One interesting idea is that crying may have a social function. A crying person is immediately communicating something without saying a word. Think about a baby. A baby doesn't need language to tell you something is happening. Their crying gets your attention. It signals vulnerability. It makes other people respond. As humans grew into highly social animals, emotional signals became incredibly important. A facial expression, a change in voice, a hug, a smile, or tears. These signals help people understand what is happening inside someone else's mind. And happy tears can carry a surprisingly complicated message. Imagine seeing an old friend after 20 years. You recognize their face. Your brain retrieves memories. You remember who you were together. You remember everything that happened afterward. And then suddenly, you're standing in front of each other again. You smile, you laugh, and you cry. What emotion is that? Happiness? Nostalgia? Relief? Love? Sadness about lost time? Probably some combination of all of them. And this is where the human brain becomes fascinating. Real emotional experiences rarely fit into one category. We like to label emotions as if they were simple: happy, sad, angry, afraid. But inside the brain, emotions are far more complicated. You can miss someone and be happy to see them. You can be proud and terrified at the same time. You can laugh while crying. You can feel relief because something wonderful happened, while also feeling sadness about everything it took to reach that moment. Human emotions often overlap, and tears may appear when that emotional mixture becomes too intense. There's another phenomenon that reveals just how strange this system is. Sometimes people cry during moments that are almost unbearably beautiful. A piece of music reaches a certain point. Someone gives a speech that feels deeply personal.
You watch your child sleeping. You see a place you've dreamed of visiting. You hear a familiar voice after years apart. Nothing is physically wrong, yet your eyes become wet. Researchers have studied these kinds of experiences under ideas such as emotional arousal and dimorphous expressions. The basic idea is that extremely positive emotions can sometimes produce expressions we normally associate with negative emotions. Crying is one example. You may also see this when someone laughs so hard that they start crying. The emotion is positive, but the physical response becomes something we normally associate with sadness. Why would the brain do this? One possibility is that these seemingly opposite reactions help regulate overwhelming emotional states. In other words, when an emotion becomes extremely intense, the body may produce a response that helps bring that intensity back toward a manageable level. It's almost as if the brain is saying, "This is too much to simply contain. Something has to happen." And sometimes that something is tears. But there's an even deeper reason happy crying may exist. Humans depend heavily on other humans. Our survival has always been connected to relationships. For most of human history, being separated from the group could be dangerous. Children needed caregivers. Adults needed cooperation. Families depended on one another. Communities survived through trust. So when emotions become overwhelming, communicating those emotions to others can be valuable. A smile says, "I'm okay." A scream says, "Something is wrong." Tears can say something much more complicated. "This matters to me. I'm overwhelmed. I feel deeply connected to this moment. Stay with me. And sometimes I can't put this feeling into words." That may be one reason tears can make powerful moments even more meaningful. Think about a wedding. People laugh, they smile, they cheer, and then someone starts crying. Soon another person wipes their eyes, then another. Nobody necessarily became sad. Instead, one person's emotional expression spreads through the group. Humans are highly sensitive to the emotional states of others. We constantly read faces, voices, gestures, and body language. Emotions can become socially contagious, and tears are among the strongest emotional signals we have. But here's something important. Happy crying doesn't happen to everyone. Some people cry easily. Others almost never cry. Some people experience intense emotions internally without showing much outwardly. That doesn't mean one person feels more deeply than another. Emotional expression is influenced by personality, culture, upbringing, expectations, and individual biology. So if you've ever watched someone cry from happiness and thought, "Why are they crying?" the better question might be, what could possibly be so powerful that their body had to express it? Because sometimes the most overwhelming human moments aren't purely happy or purely sad. They're bigger than that. They're the moment you finally hug someone you've missed for years. The moment your parents see you achieve something they sacrificed for. The moment you hear the news you thought might never come. The moment someone says, "I'm proud of you." The moment you realize that something you once thought was impossible actually happened. Your brain doesn't always respond to those moments with a simple smile. Sometimes the emotional system becomes so active that the boundaries between happiness, relief, love, nostalgia, and sadness begin to disappear, and tears become the visible evidence of that complexity. So the next time you find yourself crying during an incredibly happy moment, don't immediately try to stop it. Your body isn't necessarily telling you that something is wrong. It may simply be responding to something that matters enormously. Because tears aren't the language of sadness alone. Sometimes they're the body's way of saying, "This moment is bigger than words." And perhaps that's why in some of the happiest moments of our lives, we don't just smile.